Well, of course, Days of Our Lives remains in last place in my soap opera rankings for February 2022. A lot of that has to do with the fact that there was only 9 episodes for the soap opera in February. Because of the Winter Olympics, Days wasn't on for 2 weeks. Days has been in last place in my rankings for a few months now. All because of the trash writing of Ron Carlivati. I've talked about it on the last couple episodes, and nothing can really change in 9 episodes from January. Every story on this show basically sucks, in my opinion. I'll break down a few of them. Obviously, I've already broken down the possession enough, but I might as well keep doing it because I still don't understand the reason why the story just didn't end with Marlena, why Johnny is possessed. I guess they're going to make Johnny go around causing some havoc in people's relationships maybe. But at this point, it just continues to make the show dumb. Doing another possession story was a big mistake from this show. I think anywhere you slice it, the stories on this show are now all looking like jokes. The show, it's hard to call Days of Our Lives a soap opera. It's quite frankly mostly a cartoon. One of the main stories that we came off of in January into February has been Craig coming out as gay to Nancy after all these years. Nancy just being his beard. Of course, this is going to upset any fan of this couple of Craig and Nancy, makes their entire relationship a lie. So, a hard-pressed storyline here with the fan base. And the show is in a lose-lose situation now for doing this story. I'm sure Ron got the idea because Kevin, who plays Craig, came out as gay a while back. But that doesn't mean you have to quickly make his character gay. I don't understand why they couldn't just make his character bi. I think him being bisexual would have lessened, I guess it would have lessened the story in the eyes of Ron, I guess, or the producers or whoever came up with this idea. But it would have at least not completely shit on the Nancy and Craig relationship and their history if Craig at least came out as bi. Because to say that Craig never truly was into Nancy, it's a slap in the face for anybody that enjoyed this couple. And then it plays into the fact that Nancy has always been an overweight character, something we rarely see on soap operas as it is. So just all around, it was a bad idea. And the fact that Leo is going to be Craig's lover is just going to devolve the story into a joke and a cartoon like the rest of this soap opera is. There's also some writing mistakes. They didn't actually go back to look at the history that when Craig and Nancy were first on the show, and as their relationship developed, we learned more about them and how they had been together since college, but yet Craig was sleeping with guys in college before he was with Nancy, or so he says. So the timeline for all of this kind of goes against past history, what they call a retcon in soap operas. And soap operas have to do that when the stories aren't working. If you have to do a retcon for a story, you might be messing up. That should be the first sign that the story might not be good. And there's not even really an out of this now, because if I've seen speculation that maybe it's the devil making Craig do this, or maybe Craig is kind of being blackmailed by Leo for something, and that's why he's going along with it. Although we saw Craig being into Johnny, a shirtless Johnny. But they can't go back on the story now, or that's going to be look even worse socially, because they're doing this coming out as gay story, and then Craig doesn't really be gay and he's just faking it. That's not going to go over well. So it's another lose-lose situation for the show because the writing sucks. I do want to give a shout out to Isaiah Hill. He commented on a lot of the American soap opera videos I've done over the last 2 months. He was commenting on the Last Days video for January and how Days is very hit or miss, and it has periods where it is so good, and then periods where it'll range from boring to bad. And right now, he says it's one of the missed periods. It's definitely one of the missed periods for me, and it has been since the fall. But I want to shout out to Isaiah. I like the comments on the videos. Please comment if you have any comments to make about Days. If you don't agree with me, that's in the bottom. I would like to know why. In fact, let me talk about the only positive story, and then I will say what I would love from the comments to anybody that watches this and wants to comment about Days. The only story I semi-enjoy, and it's only because it is the only story that is, like, grounded in some sort of reality, is Paulina and Ray coming back to town. William Christian, I believe is his name, playing Ray. He was on All My Children as Derek. I remember him in the early 90s. So I like the casting, first of all, and I like that they continue to dive more into the black family on the show. They're the only American soap opera actually seeming to make good work out of their people of color characters. So I will commend Days for that. And this story is grounded in reality. For now, I mean, unfortunately, Ray is like producing Johnny's movie, so I'm sure there could be some fuckery in the future with Johnny possibly involved in the storyline. But they have it so, like, Ray used to beat Paulina, and he's in town now, and he tells Lonnie that he can be her father. So we're getting more for Lonnie to do, getting more on Lonnie's history, or I mean, they're changing her history. But it's at least working for me. Mostly because, unlike most of the other stories on this show right now, it's grounded in reality. And look, I know Days has a long history of not being grounded in reality. And there's a lot of past stories that I like that were not grounded in reality. But since with the rest of the show being like a cartoon, I'm enjoying this one story that at least seems to be grounded in some sort of reality. So what I want in the comments is, other than this story, I would love to know what story is actually working. Because for me, there's not a whole lot working. We have Sierra and Ben being bogged down by a pregnancy. And I guess at least they had Johnny talking about that baby again, since he's now possessed by the devil. And when the devil was in Marlena, he was obsessed with their baby. So they kind of touched upon that again. But I find it stupid, and I don't... Who cares about Ben and Sierra having a baby? I don't. They're the sin that couple got popular in the first place because they were, you know, kind of hot and exciting, and I don't think they really ever fixed the character of Ben enough for me. But you can't say that those two didn't have chemistry. They did, but now they're just being bogged down by a pregnancy. It's not really working. I've already touched upon how Ron has kind of hurt both EJ and Sammy and Lucas and Sammy with that storyline. So that's already a broken story. And then we have Kristen holding Sarah captive and basically holding Steve and Kayla captive as well. There's a part of this that I like. There's, you know, Ron's very good at his wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Here's some history for you. He will bring history into the story. And the one part I like about the story with Kristen holding like Sarah captive and Sarah not knowing who she is, it kind of plays into when Hope was on Maison Blanche and Stefano kind of held her captive all those years and she thought she was Gina. It's kind of a throwback to that. But the problem with this story is Ron once again going back to his usual stuff. He went back to a mask already. He recycles all his damn storylines, and now he's going back to another character on this show, thinking they're another past character on this show, when this failed miserably with Steve thinking he is Stefano. That was an awful storyline. So Ron not only goes back to stories that might have worked in the past, but he's going back to stories that didn't work, and this didn't work. Sarah thinks she is Renee Dumont because she read Renee's diary, and she thinks she's in love with Tony. Renee was a character back in the early 80s. I unfortunately only saw like her last few months on the show back when it was on YouTube. years and years and years ago. Renee was a good character, though, very entertaining, and unfortunately, the actress Felice Sampler, I believe is her name, passed away last year. So on one hand, it's like a throwback to history. I enjoyed hearing about the history from Sarah thinking she is Renee, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, Steve and Kayla are obviously old, and Tony's obviously going to be old too, but Sarah's going to really think she's Renee in love with Tony. I don't know how. The story's going to be dumb. Everything on this show becomes a joke and it becomes a cartoon, and that is my biggest problem, and has been for months now. Days needs to ground itself. Ron needs to ground himself, or Ron needs a co-writer that can ground him. I would prefer a co-writer to Ron just straight up being fired, because the one thing I will never take away from Ron is that he does have a love for the soap opera genre. And he, at least, I think he does have a passion for writing some of his own stories, even if he recycles a lot of them. So I don't know if there is like a good alternative to Ron right now, unless the soap opera business is actually going to really dig into some good, solid writers and not go back to their usual same writers that they recycle over and over and they all suck. But Ron, they need to find Ron a co-writer. He needs help grounding the show and not make everything a cartoon. Because to me, that is what the show is right now. It's not a soap opera. It comes off like a cartoon. It's way too much for me, and not in a good way. And so Days has to remain at the bottom of my rankings because of how basically every story on the show, except for maybe one, is a joke. And if somebody else wants to tell me a storyline working for them in the comments, I would love it. I might agree with you, I might disagree with you, but I would love to know what storyline is actually working that isn't becoming a joke or isn't a cartoon. I do like the chemistry between EJ and Bal. Maybe they're setting something up there for them to have a thing, for Bal to have an affair with EJ. Maybe that could be something when Sammy comes back. I don't know. I do think they have chemistry, and I like that. But I wouldn't call that a storyline right now. And I don't like EJ and Jill with Clyde. This show acts like Clyde was this compelling villain when he isn't. I get sick of seeing Clyde return for prison stories. Anyway, I'll stop ranting now. Days remains in last place, and maybe with more episodes in March we can move this along. But I truly think that until they finally end this possession storyline, and it doesn't seem like it's going to end until May at the earliest, that Days is going to stay at the bottom, or very towards the bottom, for March and April as well, because I don't like how much of a cartoon it is.